enough, they're no longer together. All right, so this survey not only showed that Vancouver's picky, but said that Vancouver women are especially picky as well. Paddi Rice of Executive Search Dating is joining us to talk a little bit about this particular issue in the city. Hello, Paddi. How are you?
I'm fine, Mike. How are you?
Great, thank you. I know you were quoted in one of the articles. Are Vancouver women especially picky?
Well, I'd have to agree in a sense that I think the article was referring specifically to online dating. And yeah, I think, when it comes to online dating, especially in Vancouver, there's just so many people dating online in Vancouver. It was really one of the first big online dating markets. And so, yeah, I think it's fair to say that women are probably picky. Another word for picky might be selective. So you can choose the word.
I was going to say, to my mind, it sort of makes sense that
it's not a bad thing. It's actually, frankly, we're not an online dating service. We're a personalized matchmaking service.
Yeah.
So we tell people, if you are online, you want to, there's a balance there. You want to be selective, and if you want to be called picky, that's fine. But of course, you also don't want to be so selective that you've got so many criteria that you don't end up meeting anybody.
So how do you avoid being too picky? I mean, is it a matter of making a list of your priorities and really planning this out before you go on that, that date?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's two sort of separate sets of rules, online and offline. When it comes to online, I think there's a couple of simple things that people can do to, both on the male and female side. I think both for men and women, you want to put a bit of effort into your profile, make it stand out, and definitely use accurate photos. So we've all heard the stories of people showing up, and it's like, hey, wait a second, you don't look like George Clooney. So be as honest as you can when that comes. And for men, when you are trying to make a connection with women, put some effort into it. Read their profile. If, for example, you find that they have some similar interests as you, travel, maybe they just came back from a travel, and you've got a travel story as well, then approach them and ask a question online, as opposed to just go to connecting and saying, hey, what's up, or do you want to hook up? And on the women's side, I would say, screening is good, and you definitely want to have criteria, especially if you're on the free online dating sites, which is a bit of a free-for-all. But don't be so selective that nobody makes it through your criteria. I mean, if you met somebody or online who you have a few things in common with, then arrange to meet them. Listen, be safe and be smart about it. Meet during the day at a Starbucks. Don't meet at some sort of, abandoned alleyway at midnight if you haven't met somebody before. So that's basically online. There's a balance you can strike between, being careful and being smart about it. At the same time, you do actually have to meet people in person. I mean, you can also spend 3 weeks exchanging emails with somebody and then meet them and there's no sparks whatsoever.
But Paddi, you mentioned a couple of times you said the word effort, and I think sometimes people divest themselves from the thought of this being a process and work that you have to put in to have a positive outcome. How important is effort on both sides of the equation when it comes to finding that match and finding that date in real life? Yeah, no, I think effort is one word, and another one would be being proactive. And no, I think in Vancouver particularly, I think obviously you mentioned it yourself. I don't know that there's another city in North America that has it's tough out there
as bad a reputation as Vancouver. And I think part of the thing is I think people have sort of talked themselves into thinking you just can't meet somebody in Vancouver, and it's become a bit of a vicious cycle. I mean, everyone's out there thinking they can't meet somebody, and so nobody's introducing themselves to new people, and so on and so forth. So what I say to people, and listen, in the world of dating, it's not totally equal here. I do think, especially if we're talking in the offline world, which, by the way, I think is a huge opportunity that's not really tapped in Vancouver. I think online's great, and it's huge here. But, when people are out, and men in particular, make an effort to go up to somebody new and say hi. And I know that everyone's got preconceived notions of what will happen, but I can tell all the men out there, if you do that, the only, likely reaction you might get from the woman is a look of shock that you've actually come up and said hi.
And that'll dissipate.
In the end, we are all Canadians, and we're polite. So being proactive and making an effort, as you yourself mentioned, not just in dating, in every part of life, sitting back on your sofa and waiting for Prince or Princess Charming to come storming through your door rarely works in real life.
Paddi, you run a executive search dating, which helps people through this effort, but you must have to counsel them a little bit or teach them how to date, because there are skill sets, are there not?
Actually, Mike, it's not as difficult. I mean, there's definitely, for people who haven't dated much or haven't dated for a long time, it can be a bit stressful. Our approach to dating, we are different. I mean, we actually meet clients first. We interview them and screen them and then select matches for them. So it's not.
That helps.
Yeah, so you can be a little, how shall I say, a little bit more relaxed on your date, and we set the dates up. But what we encourage people to do, and I would say this broadly to anyone out there dating, keep in mind that on that first date is absolutely not the time for a long checklist, because the reality is you're probably not going to know on a first date if that person is the perfect person for you anyway. Really, in life and in dating, you'll get a lot better results if you focus on the things that you can control. And one of the things you can control is having fun. Come armed with some good conversation topics, talk about some things that you both are interested in, but mostly be positive and be fun. And I know that sounds a bit simplistic, but the reality is when you relax and you're having fun, naturally that makes the person you're with a bit more relaxed, and they're going to have more fun. And then you can create, we talked about the vicious cycle of dating. Well, then you can create the virtuous cycle of dating, which is you're having fun, you're showing the best version of yourself, which makes the person you're with have a better time, and that does nothing but maximize the chances of a connection. And then the second thing I would say is don't expect that heaven and earth has to move on the first date before you go on to a second date. In fact, we sort of turn that around and say, unless you're absolutely sure on a first date that person, you have no sparks whatsoever, and that's fine. I mean, you've got to have a little bit of chemistry. But unless that's the case, I always say make an arrangement to see somebody a second or a third time, because really on a second or a third date, it's actually a much better time to really get to know somebody.
Paddi, excellent advice all the way along.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And we're always, I know that Vancouver's got a reputation as a tough place to date, but I mean, we have, thousands of people in our database, and it's, believe it or not, it's sort of a 1-to-1 ratio. I mean, there are a lot of guys out there, and there's a lot of women out there. I think it's just a question of getting out and forget the stereotype and approach people and say hi. And if that doesn't work, there's plenty of great professional dating services like executive search dating that can help you out as well.
Paddi, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your wise words. Get out there, Vancouver. Don't be too picky, but be picky enough. That's important too. We really appreciate it, Paddi. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Have a good time. It took me probably 6 or 7 dates before I trapped my wife finally. She loves me. Yes, she does. I don't know why sometimes. Makes me feel like a lucky guy, though, I'll tell you that. So I hope you found it in your life, and if not, just keep on working and keep on having hope, because there is someone out there. Matter of fact, I'm a believer that there are multiple opportunities for love in your life, and I don't mean swingers. I just mean you can find that connection. You've got it on the shift on CKNW News Talk 980. We're going to close things